In this video, I'm going to talk to you about what is the change of definition of disability for a long-term disability claim. Now, if you're involved in a long-term disability claim, there will come a point, most likely, that you'll get a letter or some information from the insurance company talking about this change of definition of disability. So let's cover what this is. It's important to know that with group insurance policies in particular, and that's what most people have with long-term disability, these group insurance policies have a definition of disability. It's often called the definition of total disability. And this is a specific definition that sets out the criteria you must meet in order to be approved for disability benefits under this plan. Now, the important thing to know is that these definitions of total disability have two parts most often. There is the first part of the definition that is called the own occupation clause, we'll call it. And the second part is called the any occupation clause. And the period of time when you switch from this own occupation definition to the any occupation definition is the quote-unquote change of definition. So let's look at what these mean. The own occupation clause refers to whether you can do the essential duties of your own occupation. My own occupation is a lawyer. The focus would be on, can I do the general duties of my own occupation as a lawyer? And if I can't, then I would meet the definition of disability. The second part of this, when it changes over, though, to the second part, and just for context, normally the own occupation clause will apply for a set period of time. Normally, it's about 2 years, but I've seen it as low as 1 year, and I've seen it go as much as 5 years in terms of when there's a double definition. So let's say it's 2 years, which is the most common. For 2 years, I will continue to meet the definition of disability for own occupation as long as I'm unable to do the duties of a lawyer. And so what that would mean is we would look at what the duties of a lawyer are, and we would go through each one and say, does my medical condition prevent me from doing them? Now, here's the thing. At the 2-year point, and there will be a specific date that is assigned when this happens, it's to the day, my definition of disability will switch under my policy from own occupation to any. The any occupation says that you will only continue to be defined as disabled under this policy if you are unable to do the essential duties of any occupation for which is reasonable for you based on your education, work history, etc. This is where it gets more difficult. If you think about it, okay, you can't do the duties of a lawyer, but now it says you're only disabled if you can't do any occupation that's reasonably suited to you based on your education, training, and work experience. Well, that opens it up quite further to a lot of other jobs. So this is an important point when this change happens because it, in a sense, gets harder in some instances to prove that you are still disabled because it's not just focusing on your own job. You now have to show that all these other jobs out there in the world that the insurance company thinks you should and might be able to do, you have to now focus on each of these multiple other options and show why each of those you would not be able to do, or maybe you can. Sometimes people are able to go do other work, sometimes they're not. Now, here's an important point. This is something a lot of people get wrong. This change of definition happens, a lot of people take this any occupation literally. And the insurance will sometimes encourage you to believe and think about it that way, that it literally is any occupation. If there's any occupation you could do, you don't get benefits. That's not exactly true. And it's not that you can do any occupation. It normally will be indexed to some percentage of the money you earned in your pre-disability income. So for example, let's just say with my policy, I would be considered, if this is not my actual policy is own occupation for the whole time. But if I had one that switched, okay, usually when it switches to any occupation, there is an income threshold there to say that as long as you're unable to earn 60%, sometimes it's more, but let's just say 60% is a kind of a baseline. If you can't earn at least 60% of your pre-disability income doing other types of work, then you would still be considered disabled under most policies, okay? Some policies will specifically say that what the income threshold is. So it's not literally any other work. It's any other work that would enable you to earn at least 60% of your pre-disability income. If you're able to do some work doing other types of job outside of your normal career, but you say you can only earn 30%, that's the most you can do, Well, in those cases, you're still entitled to long-term disability benefits, and there might be some offset there depending on how your policy is worded, but you could potentially work and get disability benefits too, as long as you can prove you're incapable of working more. Now, this is all complicated, and it will really depend on your policy, and the insurance company will often dispute whether you have that right, and sometimes they will try to treat it like if you can do anything, no matter how minuscule of an income, then we're not going to pay you. Okay, so you have to be very careful about that. I think that's all that I want to cover on this. Oh, though there's one more thing. I won't go into great detail. I'll have another video on this, but in the lead up to this change of definition, and I'm going to have a whole video on this, there's going to be a series of things in the 12 months leading up to when this definition of disability changes. So once you get it so that your definition of disability is about a year away, the change, a lot of things are going to happen at the insurance company over that year. So they're going to be doing a lot of investigations, getting information to try to build either evidence to say that you're going to meet the new definition of disability, or they're going to try to cut you off at that change. This change of definition of disability, it's kind of a tongue twister. This is a prime time for insurance companies to cut people off because it gives them an excuse. They have a reason, and sometimes it's not clear if you can do other work. So just realize that in that year leading up to that change, there's going to be a lot going on, and I'm going to cover that in another video. If you have any questions, reach out to us. We give free consultations. You can use the links on this page, or if you're watching this on YouTube, go down to the video description and there'll be a link to our website. I do wish you all the best. We'll see you back here next time.